Hello, and welcome back to Interwoven Stories. My name is Victoria, and this week I spoke with Manya and Naama, founders of Threads of Tech. Together, they are creating a community in the fashion tech space, from putting on events during New York Fashion Week to their job board and connecting people with their dream jobs. Naama has a background as a software engineer and knitwear designer, and Manya as a data analyst and fashion designer. What started out as a roommate search ended up with them putting on 2 major events in 5 weeks and becoming co-founders. Manya and Naama are often behind the scenes making sure their events run smoothly, so I'm excited to share their story here and help others learn more about the really exciting work they are doing. If you're unfamiliar with what fashion tech even means, maybe you follow Data But Make It Fashion on Instagram or have seen a cool new fashion tech startup. If you've ever wanted to learn more about the fashion tech space, whether you're a student or someone looking to use their tech background to pivot jobs, this episode is for you because they share a lot of insight on how they made it happen themselves. And a little update from Interwoven. I am currently doing a 1K Instagram followers giveaway. So go and enter there on the Instagram. It's super easy, and you can get 5 more entries if you follow or rate or review the podcast on Spotify, and 5 more if you do it on Apple as well. I want to thank anyone who has taken the time to rate and review the podcast anywhere, because it really helps other people find the podcast and just gives really good feedback for me as well. So I would really appreciate it if anyone could take the time. It'll take 30 seconds or less, I promise. And yeah, please let me know your thoughts. Thank you so much. So let's get into it. And this week's listener story is from Rachel, the owner of vintage store Too Many Jackets. She shared, "It's almost impossible to pick just one piece to gush about because I feel like I'm constantly finding the next best piece. That's what's so exciting about having a vintage store and thrifting in general. You're constantly finding those gems. But one that does come to mind that brought me so much joy was a 1930s custom-made silk wedding gown that I found at an estate sale. It had a 6-foot train, sleeves, and the silk was breathtaking. I had it in the shop for a bit when a bride came in looking for a gown. She was getting married in a month and had seen the dress on my website and knew she had to try it on. I gasped when she came out of the dressing room because it fit her perfectly and she looked stunning. The fact that her wedding was in weeks and she wouldn't need any alterations was such a serendipitous moment. Owning a vintage store has brought me so many happy moments like that, and I feel so grateful to be able to connect the perfect piece with the person it was meant to be with." I love this story from Rachel, and I think it just speaks so beautifully to the meaning that an item of clothing can have, especially for your wedding day. Something that you'll probably wear only once, but you'll never forget. It will be in photos everywhere. You might pass it down to your daughter, or someone, a complete stranger, might end up wearing it too. I've actually had a moment kind of similar to this where I tried on a dress in a vintage shop, and when I walked out to see it in the mirror, the other girls in the store gasped and were like, "You have to buy this. It was made for you. It looks stunning." And beyond just the compliments and ego boost, it really is this special feeling that I think a vintage or secondhand piece can bring when it is one of a kind and it fits you so well that you have no doubts that you should buy it because it feels like it was made for you. And how beautiful that Rachel is able to give other people moments like that. So thank you so much, Rachel, for sharing. I'm so glad to have you guys in person. We've exchanged a lot of messages on LinkedIn, email, Instagram, but I love this really niche space you guys have built and brought people together. So I would love to hear how you guys came to this idea, how you met, how you both decided to come together and work together, just background.
For sure. We can start up with how we met. Manya was moving into the city and she was looking for housing, and a previous roommate of mine was moving out. So I posted on Facebook Marketplace in a housing group, and I was like, I'm a software engineer, I work in tech, I'm also a knitwear designer. And Manya caught on to that, and she was like, oh my gosh, I have to meet you. So we got on a call, in the initial roommate call, and we didn't actually end up being roommates together because she didn't like the location of our apartment. But we both realized that we had a lot in common, and we then later met up after she moved to the city, and we had a dinner date where we were discussing our goals for the future. And she said she would really love to get into event production production and everything. And she was like, oh, but I just moved here. I don't know if I can do that. And I was like, let's just do something. We both love fashion. We're both in tech. Let's just make an event for fashion tech. We know that there's this niche industry that exists, but we haven't seen any community for it. So we just started planning our first event within that night. That we had dinner, and it was like so spontaneous, but I felt it was a moment where we really need to get the ball rolling and just start it. But yeah, you could talk more about our first event and how that.
So within that day that we decided, hey, let's do an event centered around fashion tech, we generally envisioned Threads of Tech to become some long-term organization. We were just like, let's treat this as a one-off event, have placeholder branding, placeholder name, just put it out there and see who comes and see what the response is. And we had 2 weeks of prep, super short turnaround. We put it all over TikTok, shared it with everyone we knew, and 70 people came to the first event, and it was just a really diverse group of people. We had engineers, we had other fashion tech founders, we had people more on the sustainability front, and then we also had the fashion designers. So it was just really beautiful to see so many different backgrounds in the room. And this first event was basically a panel on circular fashion. And we had founders from the peer-to-peer rental company, Tickle, I think, this podcast. Yeah, and we had someone from a regenerative fiber company and Atlasine, which is a marketplace for sustainable designers. So it was really cool to bring all these people to speak on circular fashion. And I think a big reason Naama and I started Threads of Tech is because we felt there was so much energy around like fashion tech, but it felt such a buzzword. Even Naama and I, who have backgrounds in software engineering and data analytics and also the fashion design side of things, we still felt we were on the outskirts of hearing about fashion tech, seeing these companies pop up, but not really getting to the core of like what are founders building, how can we get involved and explore this intersection further. So very exciting to be here and just talk more about Threads of Tech.
Wow, that's kind of the founder's dream. I hope you guys are like, let's start it now and then you have a successful first event. That doesn't often happen.
We lost overall with stress and planning though, like.
Can you talk a little bit more about that event you mentioned, some of the speakers and the attendees? How did you go from not having put on an event before to in 2 weeks having sponsors and some of these like big names and just getting the word out?
Yeah, for sure.
I did not have any experience in that production at all. Manya, you can talk more about mesh, actually.
For sure. So I was previously living in Seattle, which is very not fashion centered. I think there was an article that released that was the worst dressed city in the US or something. But back in college, I started a fashion organization, and that was all about introductory fashion workshops. We put on a fashion show, so I have a lot of event and production experience from that. But I still wasn't really planning to get into events. I had moved to New York, I think last August, and then we started Threads of Tech mid-November, so it still felt I was so new to the city. But yeah, after we decided, hey, this is the event we want to do. It's going to be a panel. We want 3 to 4 speakers and want these type of people in the room. It feels like common sense to like say this, but like really breaking it down into the smallest parts. And we treated it like an MVP almost, but in an event format. We were like, okay, these are the bare minimum components we need. How can we work towards getting those? We learned that cold outreach emails can get you places.
Yeah, just try.
Yeah. I think all of 3 out of 4 of the speakers on that event, we had no prior connection to. It was just a lot of LinkedIn DMs, emailing, same on the sponsor end with food and drink and other events we've done, really just compiling mass email outreach. And I think that's the less glamorous part about events. It's really just emails.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of emails, a lot of calls. A very stark contrast from my day-to-day work as an engineer. And I was like, I don't know what I'm getting when it comes to emails.
I wish I could attend one of your events. I keep missing them, but they seem just so cool. And it's really bringing together all these people who have this interest and desire to be a part of this fashion tech community, but it just wasn't really brought together yet. And I think you've really built that space to bring people together, have them talk, and just get them in the room. And so I'm curious, what do you think was maybe an initial turning point of the fashion tech industry kind of becoming the fashion tech industry in a way? I feel like it now it's kind of a buzzword, like you said. Do you remember any sort of turning point or, oh, I read that in the news, or that company was founded and now fashion tech, something I want to be a part of?
I don't think it was so much as a big turning point. I feel it was very gradual. I think that when we first started out, we were sometimes seeing that word, but in a lot of cases, we weren't seeing the term fashion tech being applied to a lot of fashion tech companies. If we can think of some traditional fashion tech companies, Mount the Runway or Poshmark, etc., they weren't really branding themselves as fashion tech, even though that's what they were, and that's what a lot of emerging companies who are doing similar models as they are, they're branding themselves as fashion tech now. I feel like it's just a term because people like terminology. They like way around these things. It wasn't needed to call things fashion tech, but now it is. I feel like it draws people in more. I also think a lot of people in the fashion industry, or maybe in the technology industries, they're realizing that they may want to be a part of either or. So they might not be aware of what that means. Though, as a computer science student, you might not even know that you can work in fashion tech. You might think that you're siloed to working on some boring Microsoft project. I don't know. So I definitely think it has been gradual. I can't think of a turning point.
Yeah.
But we're definitely there now.
One day I heard it, and then before that, I've never heard this before. And I was like, oh, fashion
Yeah,
tech.
right. And it's so normalized.
And why can't they do it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a reason like that is another person.
Yeah, no, but I definitely agree that there were so many of these traditional fashion tech companies, they just didn't really coin that term. And I think even now there's so many companies that still don't really resonate with fashion tech. I think a lot of the more B2B inventory side and supply chain side companies brand themselves more under e-com or retail management, even though a large portion of their clients are apparel and beauty brands.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of think it's a term that investors find sexy. And people can pitch it as, no, it's not just fashion, which traditionally I think men, just who are the majority of investors, get the majority of investment money, don't really understand. Then when you add a tech to it, they're like, I get it now.
Right.
And like, you know, if it brings more money to women-owned businesses and businesses that deserve money, call it whatever you want.
Right. Well, how can you attach these?
Yeah.
I think a high signal is that a lot of key names and major players are from the fashion industry are now starting fashion tech companies, such as Julie Bornstein from Daydream, who's a big name in the fashion industry. I know Thea is a new company, and they're founded by Thea Gay, but Sophia Kiani. So just some major players in tech or in fashion, they're now starting to build in fashion tech, and I think that's also a high signal for that this niche of this industry, because they're intentionally branding themselves as fashion tech. Yeah.
And I really think it's about to just really grow and grow. And you guys have a job board that I also think keeps growing and growing. So do you get a lot of emails or inquiries about, how do I even get involved in this? How do I get started?
Yeah, we actually, I feel this is something that needs an applaud, but we made a connection because somebody reached out to us and they were like, oh, I've been looking for a job in fashion tech, entry level, do you know of anything? And I was like, actually, I do. And I just felt such a full circle moment for me. We started for us, it feels so recently, but I guess in the grand scheme of things, it's been a skin in the game for a long time. But I'm in a position where I'm able to connect people, and I know enough people to connect people, and I just feel that's very empowering for me. But yeah, we had a lot of people at Katie's events as well come up to us and ask us, do we know anybody who's currently hiring for this or for that? And actually saying, yes, I do. I don't know, I just feel very powerful. And our job board, I actually built it myself, and we recently launched a company directory, so you can see a long list of every company in fashion tech that I could manually compile. And I'm very excited to see it grow, to see more companies and founders reach out to us and ask us for help hiring for new roles. Yeah.
Also on that note, a big reason we started Threads of Tech is we don't have traditional fashion backgrounds either. Very much self-taught on the fashion design side. And I think we were meeting so many people who have these skills in finance, sales, software engineering, who want to be able to apply that into fashion, but don't really know these companies or know where to look. There's no real fashion tech hiring board, and that's what we're trying to create with Threads of Tech, to be that hub for people to go to when you're in this in-between position between both tech and fashion.
Yeah. What is your greater vision for Threads of Tech? I know you guys are quite a new company, and so maybe you haven't thought that far ahead, or maybe you have. What is your kind of grand vision?
For sure. I feel we have so many plans. Our list of future events is so many pages long, but obviously we won't get to executing all of that, at least in the near future. I think for the near future, we definitely want to grow out our initial team because currently it is me and Naama, and I think we have our hands tied with a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And as we mentioned, we started out with events, but we really want to push our media presence more and be the go-to for news on fashion tech. And I think really in the last 6 months, there's just been such a big boom around fashion tech and people writing about it, people sharing about it, other events about fashion tech, and that is so exciting to see. And we just want to be this resource for people to go to, hey, what fashion tech events are happening in New York, LA, what jobs are out this week, what's some interesting news about investments in this space, everything about that. And on another front, also highlighting people in the community. So taking what we're building with events, but putting that more on media presence. I think one of our more long-term goals is to do a fashion tech week. There's a fashion week, there's a tech week. I feel there's a week for everything in New York.
Fashion week.
Exactly. So why isn't there a fashion tech week? And I don't think we're that far off from making that happen, just because we want this to be more of a collaborative week-long conference style event, and there have been so many events being put on by other organizations, other fashion tech companies, so just doing that all under 1 week could be really exciting.
I agree.
Yeah. I'll let Naama touch on some of the other future plans.
Yeah, I think some really exciting future plans. Alongside Fashion Tech Week, we would love to do more fun, creative, experimental events, especially because the fashion industry is used to that. We see very collaborative, explorative experiments shown through fashion shows or just through marketing campaigns. And I think bringing that to the tech side of fashion tech is really exciting. So I would love to host a gala, just and partnering with different companies to put that on. I would love to maybe host a retreat, right? Away from the city a little bit and just get some R&R while also learning about fashion tech. I think there's just so many different ways in which we could serve the founders within our community, serve the students who want to learn more within our community, and just further highlight everyone who's really driving forward everything within fashion tech.
I love those ideas. That makes me so excited. Like, do it right now.
That's what I do as well. I'm like, Anya,
No, we don't have time.
Yeah, the fashion tech retreat. Let's all go to like the mountains or something.
oh my gosh. Elva. Yeah.
I really am so sad I keep missing the events that you guys put on, so I'm really happy that I get to meet you now. But I remember seeing over the summer you did a trip to the Met Gala, right? And then there was a tea. So also things that are not traditionally just let's network, but let's be friends too, which I think is often missing at these events. Do you feel you really made friends or connections in this community is tight-knit?
Yeah, I think we've definitely seen a lot of the same faces over the last 8 months, just from our very first event. The way we got people in the door for that event was a lot of direct outreach, word of mouth, and honestly just messaging people on TikTok, Instagram that we looked up to in terms of their fashion content, and those same people have become early supporters of Friends of Tech, and some of those people are also have been on the team for past events, and I think that is just really fulfilling as well. But
yeah, we've definitely seen a lot of familiar faces at our recent, so you mentioned our tea event. So we had an event called Thread Tea and Tell, and it was a show and tell for anyone from founders to hobbyist designers, right? Just showcase what are you working on that's related to fashion tech. And we were intentional about the event. We want it to be casual. We want people to feel welcome and sharing what they're working on. And at the end of the show and tell, a lot of people, they were actually, I didn't plan to say anything, but I actually do have something to share. So we definitely really tried to cultivate for our events a community of openness, and just we're here to support you. We're not here to alienate you or anything. We're not trying to be exclusive. We're trying to be as inclusive as possible. And it's so great because a lot of people who've come to our past events, they'll be like, hey, I'm coming to your event. I'm coming a little bit early. Can I help you set up? And that has been super lovely because there are people that we know. They've been supporters of our events. They come to our first event, our second event, and they're just kind of like, I want to help out in any way that I can. And we are so receptive of that, which is another key factor of our internal hiring process that we recently went through, where a lot of the people who wanted to be part of our team were already familiar faces and people that we've met before and people who have helped us out before. And I think that was really fulfilling for us to know that it's not just a one-off thing, one-off connections we're making. It's an actual community that we're building. Yeah.
So I really do think you're providing a space that just wasn't there, but it was desired. I don't know if you heard about it. I'm sure it was on your radar, but there was the Fusion Fashion Tech Summit, and it was the very first one. I was like, wow, this is really growing. And I think fashion really wasn't part of these tech weeks, climate weeks before. And I think it gives fashion so much more legitimacy to say, we involve tech, we involve regulation, legislation, all these things. We are holding ourselves to certain standards, and just it didn't before. And it allows so many other people to get involved. And so if you were to describe the industry, or someone, how do I even get involved? How do I get started? Well, how would you describe the industry, and then what would you tell them as a first step to get involved? Maybe it's go to one of your events or apply to your internal team.
I think with describing the industry, I think there are just so many segments of fashion tech, and the first step is really to get familiar with what that is. So starting off on the B2B side, as we mentioned, all the inventory, supply chain, and then more consumer side, making shopping experiences more easier with search engines, personal styling. Recently been seeing a lot of peer-to-peer rental. I think there's just so many different components of this whole sphere of fashion tech, and I think I did research online because obviously there is so much online, as well as listening directly from these founders behind these companies. I think really throws you into what they're working on and how these solutions. I think there's no one right formula, and honestly, I think Naama and I are still trying to figure it out. I wouldn't say we're 10 years into fashion tech. We've been building a B2B SaaS product for years, nothing like that. And I think just keeping tabs on all these different pages and resources, especially in New York, where so many fashion tech-related events have been happening recently, I think it makes it much easier. But I think it's really about building that domain knowledge and then seeing how your initial skill set can fit into that. Personally speaking, my background is in data analytics, and I think for a long time I didn't really enjoy it. I honestly thought I wouldn't stick around in data science for a long time, but I think in the last 2 years I've really come to appreciate this skill set and seen how it can be applied to fashion, and with trend forecasting, merchandising, everything there, and that has made me really appreciative. So it's really just taking a step back. How can you rework your skills and pitch yourself into fashion?
Yeah, I think that's really good advice for a student or someone who wants to switch industries. I think that's a lot of people get into something. I hate this job. I'd rather be doing something more creative. So that's really good advice.
Yeah, I feel like using our skill sets to issue with the creative product that we ideally want to be working on, if that makes sense. So maybe data analytics is not the sexy thing on its own, but if you're working on a very exciting company doing data analytics, maybe that's the job that you might have towards using that skill set for that company or for that product.
Yeah, I think it came across, well, I worked with pretty recent data that make it fashion, but I feel she has been such a huge inspiration to me, just with all of the trend forecasting, analyzing color patterns and the new season's collections. And I myself haven't worked on using data in that way, but I think it's really inspired me to hone in my skills to be able to do similar things as well.
And to see that people are so receptive to what she's producing. She's at Milan Fashion Week, right? People want this information, and she has so many followers. So I think it really shows how set up to grow this industry can be. One of the main events you've done is Edge. Can you just get into that a bit more? Who was there? What was the inspiration for it? And how did it go?
Yeah, for sure. So this was our first large-scale event back in February. So just 2 months after we launched the tech. And we had another partner, Karina Popovich, who runs 4Kids. And she approached us, and she's also very much in the fashion tech space and was wanting to host basically this large-scale expo. And the premise was very consumer-centric startups. We wanted 5 panels happening throughout the day. We wanted a bunch of booths for these startups to showcase their apps, allow people to beta test, sign up, offer promotions. It was an 8-hour-long event. We had, I think, 5 weeks of prep, which I think, looking back, was probably, we're never doing that again, is what we've decided. It was definitely a lot. And I think just the scale of the event, we had 400 people attend throughout the day. It reached, I think, 1,700 people. We had 28 different startups involved across these different panels and booths. And I think just breadth of people we saw in the ring, similar to our first event, was just so exciting. I remember that there was a full FIT class. Instead of going to class, a professor brought them to the event. And I think that really stressed that education around this is needed. It's not currently being taught really in classrooms. There's not fashion tech curriculums. I think we should go as far as to say we could even have fashion class on fashion like a fashion tech certificate or program or degree in the future. There's merchandising business, why not?
And we did Thread Talk, which was a play on TED Talk. So.
Yeah,
So maybe we could do an actual TED Talk.
right.
Yeah.
But I think through Edge, we definitely learned a lot about, setting more realistic timelines, how to go about partnerships, sponsorships, how to do this sort of mass marketing, and, partner with so many different media partners, getting influencers involved. We had, I think, 30 people involved with this event the day of, just because of the scale of it, and we designed a magazine in a week. There was just so many different parts of this.
I forgot about that.
I know, they locked out of my brain.
We onboarded a team of really prolific designers who worked on magazines before, product designers, etc., and they helped us out on putting out this magazine for this event, and they were completely burnt out after. So we felt a little bit bad. But after Edge itself, we were also so burnt out. I don't recommend doing a large-scale event with only 5 weeks of planning to anyone. But yeah, I feel that accelerated timeline did really teach us the value of what people want. We just saw so much interest as we were working to, make this event happen. And I think you can't replace that experience. You can't replace that electricity.
So you planned an event in 2 weeks, and then planned another event like 3 weeks later?
Yeah.
5 weeks later?
Yeah. We had a 1 week break between that. I don't know what we were on. Then we took a hiatus.
Stop the face there.
Yeah, we were like,
Wow, very cool. I mean, because you started and then had this pretty big event immediately and so much traction as well. You guys are behind the scenes, I feel like, for most of your events. You're doing the setup, you're letting other people shine. So is there anything more that, I don't know, about you guys or your passion for this industry or you as founders that you want to have the space and the platform to talk about now?
I think one really exciting thing about this industry is I'm seeing a lot of new verticals trying to tackle this fashion tech problem. Recently, we spoke with the founder of a really early stage startup called Echo, and they're building the magic mirror for consumers. So it's a magic mirror that talks to you. And so it'll analyze your wardrobe and tell you what you should wear. It'll help you pick out your outfit for the day. Say something, oh, you haven't worn this piece in 2 months. Maybe you should wear it tonight. And it's currently slated to be a hardware consumer product. And that's something that I feel is a very unique experience, a unique product that we haven't seen so far. But it's just another step up from fashion tech. We've seen a lot of different companies. There's MicroWorks, and they're a material textile company, so they're using mycelium to create sustainable leather. And there's just so many different ways in which people are trying to tackle the sustainability problems, the consumer problems, the personalization problems, etc. And I think we're just really excited to be alongside a lot of these companies and amplifying what they're building and supporting them in any way that we can. And we also, as founders starting out with events and trying to get into media, we also would love to build a product of our own, because we do have that tech industry background, and I feel we set out with events, but I guess we didn't realize that we would continue to only do it. There's just so many ways in which we are excited about the future of fashion tech. And maybe Manya can talk more about our future product endeavors.
In the last couple months, we've been toying around a bunch of different ideas and make a Figma mock-up and then abandon it. We applied to YC with 2 days of prep with a random idea. Not that random, but yeah, so we have a lot of product ideas, and I think as people, we're very much oriented towards building a product in the future. I think something that's interested us recently is actually the space of menswear and styling with men. I think all these products that are consumer facing are very womenswear heavy, and it would be interesting to dive more into the menswear space, but I think there's also a reason that the products are focusing on women's wear. And I think as a designer myself, I'm really excited about designer tools and the use of AI behind designer tools. I think one prominent one that I've come across is Raspberry AI. So super cool stuff happening there. And I think as the industry as a whole, there's definitely a really big gap right now between the services in shopping that are offered and a consumer's preferences and tastes. I think every other industry is so hyper-curated and personalized. Music, for example, with Spotify, all of these music profiles and tastes that it offers, and I think those solutions are there. So why isn't that present currently in fashion?
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I think I find fashion tech so exciting, because I feel it's so solution oriented. There's all these consumers. So many people spend money on fashion every single day. The richest man in the world is the owner of LVMH. It's not Bill Gates. It's not Jeff Bezos. It's a fashion company. And I think because it just hasn't gotten certain investment on that side, and all of a sudden, like, wait, there's money to be made here. Let's get involved. That I just really hope it keeps growing and keeps solving consumer problems and makes the fashion industry smarter. I'm excited to see what happens to everything you guys do in the future, and I will be at one of your next events.
We'll be showing them bike first.
Yeah, thank you for the gala or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I love to end by asking people if you have a story about a meaningful piece. It could be something that was passed down to you, maybe what you wore at Edge. So anything that comes to mind.
I grew up thrifting. My family home was 2 minutes away from a Goodwill, so it was basically my playground. And I have recently, in the past year, started going to estate sales and things like that. And so I find that I've acquired a lot of little trinkets and little cute accessories and stuff like that that are all majority secondhand. Manya actually pointed this out to me, but she says that I style accessories in a very interesting way. For example, I'll put fooches as a fastener to hold up the chest and bolero together, or I will wear a scarf in, interesting ways. I'm wearing a scarf as a shirt right now, so that's, fun. Sometimes I'll style belts and I'll put my bracelets or my necklaces on them just to add a chain effect. I don't know, I just think that because I have a lot of interesting accessories that are all secondhand, of course, I always feel like I want to highlight them and style them in like a very novel way. But yeah, maybe not so much about this specific item, but I feel in terms of secondhand or things like that, I am really drawn to, I guess, creating a different story for things that people in the past no longer want, right? Picking up something that somebody left behind and creating a new story for it and making it my own. I'm really passionate about that.
Oh, I love that. You're going to have to send me pictures of the way you style it. Very curious.
Similar to Naama, thrifting is definitely an integral part of how I shop and how I dress. I think around last fall, I made a rule not to buy any more new clothes until the end of the year, but it's still going. So I don't know if that's the right choice or just because I'm too lazy to shop. But I think something that has definitely been incorporated into my wardrobe is shopping in my mom's closet. I have a shirt, my mom's, and I have this one full-length denim dress that I think my mom wore on the airplane when she first came to the US.
Wow.
So it was a historical piece.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think just reworking and layering a lot of how I like to dress.
I love it. Amazing. Well, thank you guys so much. I'm so glad we got to do this in person as well here in New York. And yeah, I can't wait for everything in the future for you guys and the fashion tech industry.
Of course, sure. Yeah, thank you so much for hosting, and follow the tech on Instagram.
Yeah, plug it in.
And TikTok.